The House will come to order. Reports from the Committee on Rules and Legislative Administration.
Long from the Committee on Rules and Legislative Administration, pursuant to Rules 1.21 and 3.33, designates the following bills to be placed on the calendar for the day for Tuesday, May 2nd, 2023, and establishes a pre-filing requirement for amendments offered to the following bills: Senate File Number 2369 and House File Number 2.
Calendar for the day. The first bill on the calendar for today is House File 782. The clerk will report the bill.
House File Number 782, number 2 on the calendar for the day, an act relating to retirement, the second engrossment.
I recognize the author of the bill, the member from Ramsey, Representative Becker-Finn, to explain House File 782.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. House File 782 is the Secure Choice Retirement Bill. What this bill does is it sets up a state-sponsored program to allow workers to more easily save for retirement. Right now, what we know is that when workers do not have an easy way to do that through their employer, they simply don't save. Workers earning between $30,000 and $50,000 a year, about 72% participated if their employer had a plan. If they did not, then less than 5% of people saved for retirement. We want to make sure that it's easy for workers to save for retirement, and this bill will do that. This bill comes after many, many years of work. It is supported by the AARP. If you got the little flyers as you were coming in today, they have been supporting this for years, and we are hopeful this is the year we finally get this across the finish line. Finally, I did want to speak to the American Retirement Association, perhaps the most in the weeds letter of support I've ever received on a bill, said it best, and so I wanted to share a little bit about their views. So the American Retirement Association is an entity that represents sort of actuaries, pension professionals, other folks who work in this field. The ARA recognizes that despite our best efforts, there are far too many Americans without access to a retirement plan at work. We believe that House File 782 strikes the proper balance to close the retirement plan coverage gap in the private sector workforce to the greatest extent possible while imposing the minimum possible burden on Minnesota employers. As a small business owner myself, I'm excited about this bill. There is virtually no cost to employers, just the minimal amount of administration it's set up, and it applies to any employer with 5 or more employees. And there are a couple of amendments, and then hopefully we can pass this very good bill today. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
There is an amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
O'Driscoll moves to amend House File Number 782, the second engrossment. The amendment is coded 5A.
I recognize the author of the amendment, the member from Stearns, Representative O'Driscoll, to explain the A5A amendment.
Thank you, members, and Mr. Speaker. The 5A amendment changes the participation threshold from employers that have 5 or more employees to 50 or more. As many members know from the different committee stops that they've had, there are a number of employer regulations and new mandates that are going to be placed on employers in the way of the Family Medical Leave Act, in the way of safe and sick time, and the secure choice that we're talking about today. In an attempt to try to help employers to stay compliant, if in fact these become law, I'd like to see a standardization in the participation for employees, and I'd like to set that threshold at more than 50 employees in an organization before they become required to undertake these additional mandates and requirements for participation. Again, I don't think anybody wants to have employers have different sets of rules to play by and potentially running afoul of those things while they're trying to earn a living for themselves and provide, as a job provider, employment opportunities for folks working for them. So some standardization on the process would be greatly appreciated, I'm sure, by the employees and the employers. And I encourage a yes vote on the 4A amendment, Mr. Speaker.
Discussion to the amendment. I recognize the member from Ramsey, Representative Becker-Finn.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, and point of parliamentary inquiry, we are on the 5A amendment, correct?
Representative Becker-Finn, we are on Representative O'Driscoll's 5A amendment to House File 782.
Okay, I believe Representative O'Driscoll was speaking to the 4A amendment, so I'm not sure if we want to give him another crack at explaining the 4A, and then I would be happy to respond, but want to give him the first shot.
Representative O'Driscoll.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I was just simply setting the table for the next amendment, giving people the opportunity to learn more about that, because that is a very important provision, again, in standardizing the process for employers. To the 5A amendment, the bill calls for a report to the Pension Commission here in the Minnesota Legislature, which is made up of House and Senate members, both Democrats and Republicans. And it asks to provide on an ongoing and regular basis a series of data as it relates to the program. And I am looking to amend the bill with the 5A amendment to also include, in addition to those that are already spelled out or itemized in the bill, a report on the number of persons who were covered by the plans, covered employers, and the number of employees who have opted out of the participation in the plan, because that is an option, so that the Pension Commission get a better idea of how many folks participation, and then any kind of discretionary disciplinary enforcement actions that were taken against employers that relate to the implementation and, in essence, the employer's responsibilities and obligations to inform employees of the fact that the Secure Choice Plan exists. And once again, I would encourage a yes vote on both the 4A amendment, which we'll get back to, and the current 5A amendment. And, Mr. Speaker, I would like a roll call, please, on the A5 amendment.
Representative O'Driscoll requests a roll call vote. Seeing 15 hands, there will be a roll call vote. Discussion, Representative Becker-Finn.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I would encourage folks to support the 5A amendment. I look forward to the report that shows lots of participants and no disciplinary actions for enforcement. I think having more information in the report is just fine, and would encourage members to support the 5A amendment.
Any further discussion to the amendment? Seeing no further discussion, the clerk will take the roll on the A5A amendment. The clerk will close the roll. There being 131 ayes and 0 nays, the motion prevails and the 5A amendment is adopted. There's an amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
O'Driscoll moves to amend House File Number 782, the second engrossment as amended. The amendment is coded 4A.
I recognize the author of the amendment, the member from Stearns, Representative O'Driscoll, to explain the 4A amendment.
Well, Mr. Speaker, it is May 1st, not February 2nd, so it may sound a little bit like Groundhog's Day again here, as I remind you that the 4A amendment is an important amendment establishing and standardizing in the number of bills that we've seen with the Family Medical Leave, the Secure Choice Act, and the Safe and Sick Leave, trying to standardize the rules for employers on here. And Mr. Speaker, I would also like a roll call on the A4 amendment on this particular bill here today as well. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Seeing 15 hands, there will be a roll call. Further discussion. I recognize the member from Ramsey, Representative Becker-Finn.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I would ask members to vote no on this amendment. The smaller the employer, the less likely its workers are to have access to a retirement plan. It kind of defeats the whole purpose of the bill. Over 63% of workers in Minnesota, businesses with under 10 employees, and about 49% between 10 and 24 employees lack a plan. The whole idea is that we're making sure this is easy to access by all workers in Minnesota. Further, we actually originally had this bill at just one employee and compromised to bring it up to 5. So again, would ask for a red vote on the amendment.
Representative O'Driscoll.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. Well, what Representative Becker-Finn was quoting is, I'm not going to dispute those numbers, but I am going to dispute is the fact that if you are a small employer with 5 or with fewer than 5 employees, chances are one of those people is not your human relations person that you've hired. Chances is not your benefits administrator that you've hired. Chances are you are that person in that small and upcoming business. And if you have at least 50 employees, you probably have purchased some outside HR resources and maybe are not doing your own payroll and have other support services because of the growth and the size of your business. My biggest fear in this is that employers who want to do the right thing will inadvertently not do the right thing because of all the varying rules that are out there and the new legislation that's being introduced and most likely will pass this session, that they will end up becoming victims of the circumstances and as a result have to pay penalties, maybe as a result of that have to lay employees off because they can't afford to continue to run their business or just simply shut the business down. And so I think that there's a sense of reasonableness when we start talking about the size and scale of businesses. But let's not also lose sight of the fact that since this bill had been introduced several times over the years, that the Secure Act has been passed by the federal government, which has made it much easier for employers to be able to open up and to sponsor their own program or to pool together with other employers to offer this type of a benefit. And the Secure Act 2 that was just passed at the end of 2022 has made it even better, tax credits and things for folks. So the incentives are out there. And if the hypothesis that's been put forth by the majority party in the past to us is true, that because of the competitiveness in the world and the marketplace right now, an employer would choose to sponsor their own plan that meets their own needs. And I know that many of them are beginning to do that because of the incentives that are out there. And if you have to participate in a state program, it makes it difficult to know exactly when you need to enter and when you need to exit. And what happens if you hired 2 employees and you're busy training them and you now find yourself in the unfortunate situation of it passed the threshold and now you get penalized as a result of that. I'll have more to say when we get to the underlying bill itself. But again, for your employers and ultimately for the people that are working, please vote yes on the A4 amendment. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The clerk will take the roll on the 4A amendment. The clerk will close the roll. There being 62 ayes and 69 nays, the motion does not prevail and the 4A amendment is not adopted. There are no further amendments at the desk. The clerk will give the bill its 3rd reading as amended.
3rd reading, House File Number 782, as amended.
3rd reading as amended. Discussion to House File 782. I recognize the member from Anoka, Representative Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I had a couple of comments in Ways and Means on this bill, but Representative Becker-Finn, your opening comments there, you lost me at state-sponsored. You lost me at state-sponsored. This is not a good idea. Members, I've been around here longer than most, and I did serve 1 2-year term under Governor Pawlenty, and I always remember him saying, if it's in the yellow pages, government shouldn't do it. And I know some of you may not know what the yellow pages is anymore, but That was this directory of businesses for you millennials and so forth that was part of the old phone book, those big, thick, the white pages were residents, the yellow pages were businesses. And members, we shouldn't be doing this. The government should not be being in competition with the private sector. But I do have a couple of questions about the practical applications and how this bill will work if the author of the bill would yield, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Becker-Finn will yield to a question. Representative Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative Becker-Finn, I'm just wondering, so how does an employee go about opting out of this? Because we don't want some payroll deduction just taken out of their paycheck and they're not aware of it. So could you kind of explain to me how that's going to work according to this bill?
I recognize the member from Ramsey, Representative Becker-Finn.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you for the question. The bill sets up a secure choice board made up of professionals who work in the industry and work in the pensions space, and they would figure out the details. I can tell you, as a small business owner myself, when you onboard an employee, there's certain things that you go through when you onboard an employee, and it would be as simple as, if they choose to opt out, then they choose to opt out. We're not going to be taking money out of people's paychecks without them being aware of it.
Representative Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And if Representative Becker-Finn would continue to yield?
She will continue to yield. Representative Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative Becker-Finn, is the board in this bill, and I apologize, I don't have a copy of it right here in front of me, are they subject to Chapter 13D of the open meeting laws?
Representative Becker-Finn.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and like you, Representative Scott, I don't have the bill in front of me, but there's no special carve-out as any other board or entity would be treated under Chapter 13.
Representative Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yeah, it kind of surprises me. And I do have one more question, if she would yield to another question.
She will yield. Representative Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and Representative Becker-Finn. So in this bill, I see that it was referred to judiciary, and then it was re-referred out of there before we heard it in judiciary. And I wonder if you could explain that for me, please.
Representative Becker-Finn.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The original version of the bill included some civil penalty provisions throughout the course of session, through negotiations and compromise with the Senate and other folks involved with this. We removed the civil penalties, so there was no longer a reason for it to be in the Judiciary Committee, which is why we didn't walk through it there.
Representative Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, thank you for that explanation. I'm glad that those penalties were removed. That's one less penalty that our small businesses have to worry about this session, potentially. Members, government shouldn't be doing this. People can do this on their own. Government should not be competing with the private sector. State-sponsored, those are not comfortable words, and they shouldn't be comfortable words for any of us. This is not a role of government. It's a role for the private sector. Please vote no.
Further discussion to House File 782. I recognize the member from Fillmore, Representative Davids.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If the author would yield for a couple questions.
Representative Becker-Finn will yield to a question. Representative Davids.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and to the author of the bill. Okay, so we set this up. We spent $5 million to set something up here that's really not needed. We don't need it because the private sector does this. I mean, this is kind of my line of business here. What are these accounts that are going to be opened up? What are they investing in?
Representative Becker-Finn.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And so it would be similar to the state board, the same way that our retirement as state employees, it would be part of that system. I will note and I will email it out as soon as I sit back down. I will email it to everybody. I thought we had enough paper on our desks over the last week. I didn't hand it out ahead of time, but the American Retirement Association actually is included. That is the private sector, and as I said in my opening statements, they recognize that despite their best efforts, there are far too many Americans without access to a retirement plan at work. So I did want to point that out, that the policy problem is not that there is a lack of retirement products available, but that folks are not accessing them. But yes, it would be the same setup that the same way the State Board of Investment would be making those investments, the same as other state employees.
Representative Davis.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. And if the author would yield for a question.
She will continue to yield, Representative Davids.
But what are they investing in? What are their investments? This money is being taken out. It has to be put someplace. Where is it being put?
Representative Becker-Finn.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. A retirement plan, an IRA. I'm not sure. I honestly don't know exactly what you're trying to get. I mean, the Board of Investment would decide how to make the investments.
Thank you, Mr.
Representative
Speaker.
Davids.
And if the author would yield.
She will continue to yield, Representative Davids.
Thank you. And to the author, who's giving advice on these financial products?
Representative Becker-Finn.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. People can seek advice from whomever they choose to seek advice from.
Representative Davids.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. But Representative Becker-Finn, if it's going through some state board of investment type thing, who gives them advice on that? There's no way to give a client advice. It's just going into some board. And the clients are going to be harmed because they're not going to get advice like they would from an actual financial planner or advisor. Are the people that are taking this money, if the author would yield, Mr. Speaker.
She will yield, Representative Davids.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And President Becker-Finn, so we don't know what things are being invested in. Are the people that are taking the money, are they going to be licensed? Do they have their Series 6 and 63, or do they have their insurance licenses? The money, where's it going to? Because, or could an agent such as myself or any other licensed agent in Minnesota, can they get in the game here a little bit too? Can they have some of these accounts, or is it all going to be state-run accounts with no advice given to the client?
Representative Becker-Finn.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I know I'm being asked to yield, so I can't actually ask anyone else to yield. But for the purpose of argument, how many of you have asked under your state retirement plan that you have here as legislators, how many of you have asked for advice from someone under that plan? Yeah,
Mr. Speaker, that's out of order, I believe.
It's not an
Representative
actual
Becker-Finn,
question.
you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I noted before I asked the question for the purpose of argument, so it would be stocks, bonds, equities, the same way other things are invested, again, in all of our state plans. As was stated, and I think if you read the bill and read what was handed out, again, if I could get a second without yielding, I'll email out what the American Retirement Association has sent out. Again, these are people in the private sector admitting that this is a hole that needs to be filled and that this policy is the answer to that problem. But folks can ask for advice from whoever they would, the same way we can as state employees with state health plan or state retirement plans.
Representative Davids.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, there is no hole that needs to be filled here. This bill has been around not nearly as long as I have, but it's been around a long, long time, and it fails every year because it's not needed. There is no hole. Any person, any employee of any company can go to any financial advisor and actually get some advice by a licensed professional. That's not what we're doing here. So we don't know where the investments are going. We don't know who's giving advice. We don't know if they're licensed. Members, this is an easy no. I mean, I know it's going to pass, but this is so unnecessary. Such a waste of $5 million that, well, I guess we wasted a lot more than that this session. But thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Further discussion to House File 782. I recognize the member from Ramsey, Representative Herr.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I just want to say thank you, Representative Becker-Finn. I do have a question for you, but I just want to state really quickly that I appreciate this bill. Representative Davids, I completely understand where you're coming from. I actually did work in this industry for 15 years. I was Series 7 licensed. I completely understand what you mean about doing a risk analysis and ensuring that people are in the investments and it's the right balance of risk for them, and then to, if they have other portfolios, how to balance it with that. So I really appreciate your question. I just want to be very clear that this plan is actually really good because SBI, our State Investment Board, is actually one of the best in the investments in this country. They actually outperform the market, and so it is going into funds that are being well invested. And as it relates to how the accounts will be set up, that this is why Representative Becker-Finn stated that there is a board that is going to be put together so that they can make those decisions and that they can say who should somebody seek advice from and how they should do that. And this is a great need. As somebody who started in pensions when I was 21 years old, fresh out of college, I was somebody who got this knowledge and information, and when I made $19,000 a year. And because I started saving when I was 21 years old and I got access to an account that my husband, who didn't start saving until 10 years after I did, he is still catching up to me, even though he makes 5 times more than I made at that time. And so it is absolutely critical that people have the tools that they need in order to invest. My question to Representative Becker-Finn is, Representative Becker-Finn, what other states have done, have implemented something similar, and what has been the outcome of those particular states in them doing so? Are they running into issues of operationally how to set these accounts up?
Representative Becker-Finn, I'm taking it you'll yield to a question. Okay, Representative Becker-Finn.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. There are at least 12 other states that have implemented programs like this. Oregon is the furthest ahead of us and has seen good results so far. People are saving. It eventually will save the state of Oregon money because people will be saving for their own retirement and not relying on other supports as they age.
Representative Herr.
No further questions, Mr. Speaker.
Further discussion to House File 782. I recognize the member from Olmsted, Representative Quam.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the author yield to a question?
She will yield, Representative Quam.
Thank you. I'm trying to understand, are these going to be aggregated? Are they going to be, because someone mentioned pensions, and so are these going to be aggregated? What kind of distribution and variety of funds are there going to be? I just want a better understanding of the structure that this is setting up.
I recognize the member from Ramsey, Representative Becker-Finn.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. If you go to line 5.24 in Section 4, Subdivision 3, it's individual accounts established. So you'd maintain an account for an employee payroll deduction contributions with respect to each covered employee. Interest and earnings on the amount in the account are credited to the account and losses are deducted. So it's an individual IRA type account for each of the employees.
Representative Quam.
Thank you. So the state investment fund, or that group, which does stuff for the pensions, they're investing and aiming at long-term continual growth, and they know there will be some taken out. Individuals have a date when they're going to retire, and so they have to be shifting and adjusting because there's more risk in the high reward investments. So it's not, not applicable. Would the author yield to another question?
She will yield to another question, Representative Quam.
What are the lower limits for employees in all these other states?
Representative Becker-Finn.
Mr. Speaker, I do not have those numbers right in front of me, but happy to get you that information at a later time.
Representative Quam.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, we had an amendment to go from 5 to 50. It would be very useful if the author had that information, because if you're going to compare to other states, that's a big difference on the impact of the companies involved. It appears as if this sounds an awful lot like IRAs. In fact, I think I heard that phrase used a little bit. And it seems to me, back before I think almost all of us were born, they had an idea of government needed to tell people, you are going to retire and you're going to need to save money. And this thing called Social Security was enacted, and you don't have a choice. It's taken out, and you get it at the end. This appears as if it's an attempt at a state level to say, you are going to invest, or we're going to force companies into stuff that, oh, by the way, you already have the option. And if an outside entity that's involved in this says, oh, there are not enough people doing IRAs, so we have to incentivize it. You know, some people don't buy cars. They have bikes or they ride the bus. Some people invest in IRAs and some don't. So I think because you can already do it, we already have Social Security, that this is sort of superfluous, and I think it would be a burden and a mandate on businesses where it's not needed.
Further discussion to House File 782. I recognize the member from Stearns, Representative O'Driscoll.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the member from Fillmore, Representative Davids, yield to a question, please?
He will yield for a question. Representative O'Driscoll.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. Representative Davids, you do have a lot of experience in the investment business, and I was going to ask you if you are familiar with the term ERISA.
Representative Davids.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I am.
Representative O'Driscoll.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative Davids, what in the context of ERISA would apply in this situation that could be problematic?
Representative Davids.
Well, thank you for that question, Representative O'Driscoll. I think it was kind of down the line of question I was going down. Where's the money going? Who's giving advice? Have they had continuing education? Are they licensed? I mean, there's a lot of things that just aren't addressed here. That's my concern.
Representative O'Driscoll.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative Davids, isn't it also required by ERISA that there be an education program provided before these investments are made?
Representative Davids.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative O'Driscoll, that's my understanding. And that's why I was kind of concerned that this thing's going to be opened up with no idea of who people are getting advice from or if they're getting any. Because on some of these, I mean, somebody brought up about dealing with the State Board of Investment. Well, yeah, or with, you know, the retirement planning and so forth. Yeah, you call them up and they say, if you wait till this age, you'll get this much per month. Well, that's not a whole lot of planning there. And so I think we're really going to be hurting people. We are going to be hurting people because, and especially, you know, what's their age? Are they at age 60 investing in the stock market? Probably not the best thing. I know the board is overseeing this, but if you're age 55 and you start in this plan and the market's tanked like 2008 to 2009 up to 52% in some cases, we could be really hurting these people because I don't see any safeguards here from that. Yeah, the State Board of Investment has a pretty good track record, but go back and look at 2008, 2009, see how they did.
Representative O'Driscoll.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And Representative Davids, if he would yield for one more question.
He will yield. Representative O'Driscoll.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative Davids, if I were so fortunate to be able to be employed by the Davids Conglomerate Elemental P company here in the state of Minnesota, and you sat down and you said to me, Representative O'Driscoll, you probably wouldn't call me Representative O'Driscoll, you'd say, new hire. Welcome aboard, right? Tim, glad to have you as part of our team. Just want to let you know, here's where the restroom is, and here's where the break room is, and here's some of your employee benefits. And oh, by the way, you have to participate in a state-mandated retirement program. And my my question to you would be, what does that mean? And you would say, well, the money will be deducted. You can choose to be not involved in that. Is it possible that I could be asking you questions that you would not be able to answer because of ERISA as the employer? Thus, my questions of you, my new employer, as innocent as they are, you trying to develop a relationship with me, a new employee, we could both be in trouble as a result of that.
Representative Davids.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. And Representative O'Driscoll, that's a very, very good point. These employers want to build widgets. These employers want to do what they do. They don't want to have to offer a retirement plan or a retirement fund. There's other places to do that. They farm that out. They don't want to mess with that. And so I'm really, really concerned about that. But I've already figured out a way to get around this. but I'm not going to say it. Right now, we'll just wait, and then I'll get around it. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative O'Driscoll.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker and members, and Representative Davids, thank you for shedding some additional light on this. Members, I will tell you what the bill says. The bill does not say that the State Board of Investment is going to be doing the investments. That was a previous iteration of this. And the State Board of Investment said, you know what, we are not equipped to be able to handle this. There's an administrative function on this, there's an education function, and there's an investment function that when it comes to these types of plans that are put in place. The State Board of Investment would not be able to maintain individual accounts and do the investing. They are just not equipped for that. What will most likely happen is this board that is being constituted will take applications or RFPs from some of your major mutual fund companies. And I'm not going to mention them on the floor here, but if you have a 401k or if you have an IRA account, the same ones that you're investing in is the ones that the state is going to pick, one of those major companies. And then they will set it up so that there's a port that you can go in as an employee and establish an account. You provide that account number with the employer. And then what will happen is the employer will have to do a payroll deduction and send that on your behalf to your investment account. It sounds an awful lot to me like what's happening right now in the private sector. But yet the government's going to pick winners and losers in the mutual fund industry to have this happen. And they have online resources to meet the ERISA requirements that we were talking about. They can get investment advice. And yes, any one of us, in addition to those, can get investment advice from a private investment advisor if we want. But I hold out to you from the conversation we've been having here today. The idea that's been put forth is that lower income earners should be given the opportunity to save for their retirement. The problem is these lower income individuals probably don't have the money to invest and to pay an investment advisor for advice. Oftentimes what happens is those things are managed together when you sit down as an individual and have a conversation with an investment advisor. Members, as well-intended as this is, and I do not disagree with the underlying principle that Americans need to save more for their retirement, this is not the vehicle in these rapidly changing, expanding options for employers and individuals to invest and receive matching credits under federal law that can go into their retirement accounts. Good idea, it's past its prime. Vote no. Encourage employers to sponsor their own plans. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I recognize the member from Fillmore, Representative Davids.
Thank you. If the author would yield, please, Mr. Speaker.
She will yield, Representative Davids.
Okay, thank you to the author for yielding. My first series of questions was more like, what's the money going into? Like securities, annuities, where's the money going? CDs, where's it going? But as I've thought about what a bad idea this is further, is what is going to be offered? Are there going to be IRAs? Are there going to be Roth IRAs? Are there going to be 403Bs? Are there going to be KEOs? Are there going to be Simples? Are there going to be SEPs? What options does the employee have to go into? Or is it just IRAs? Or, and I'm really concerned about this because anybody that advises somebody making 30 grand a year to have an IRA, wow, that's some really bad advice. And I think that's the folks that this big hole exists with, the alleged big hole, which there is none. But so, okay, this isn't the question of what are they investing in, like securities or fixed annuities, or what are they investing in? But what plans can they have within this? Can it be an IRA? Can it be a Roth? Can it be a Simple? Can it be a SEP? Can it be a 403B? What can it be?
Representative Becker-Finn.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So if you go to line 3.323, the board must establish procedures for opening a Roth IRA, a traditional IRA, or both a Roth and a traditional IRA for each covered employee whose covered employer transmits payroll deductions. I find it really helps to read the bill, and you can get a lot of answers there.
Representative Davids.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I don't read bad bills. I just know they're bad. I just know they're very bad. This is unnecessary, and the answer, okay, it sounded like it was IRAs or Roth IRAs, but there's a lot of other things that a private investor could help them with. So again, members, we're flushing $5 million down the toilet really fast here. It's solution in search of a problem, and I'll read whatever bill I want to. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Further discussion to House File 782. I recognize the member from Hennepin, Representative Elkins.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Over the weekend, I received my statement for the Minnesota State Retirement Plan myself, and listed out there that by default, my investment is going into a targeted dated retirement fund. And in the bill itself, it says default investment fund. The board must designate a default investment fund that is diversified to minimize the risk of large losses and consists of target date funds, a balance fund, a capital preservation fund, or any combination of the foregoing funds. This is your basic array of retirement accounts, just like the ones that we have in the plan that we're all enrolled in. And I would imagine that since it's going to be managed by the State Investment Board, that pretty much the people who participate in these plans is going to have the same options that we do, managed the same way that ours are. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I recognize the author of the bill, the member from Ramsey, Representative Becker-Finn.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. A couple things I just wanted to remind folks about this bill. For those of us who've had this bill in pensions and state government and talked about this bill passed out of the Pensions Committee with GOP support. It is a bipartisan bill. It is supported by the Minneapolis Regional Chamber. And finally, I just wanted to set the record straight. It's not required that people save this money, but what we know what we know from numerous studies, we've even got footnotes from the handouts from the AARP and the American Retirement Association, is that when people are given the opportunity easily to save through payroll deductions, they do. And we should want all Minnesotans to save, and the smaller the employer, the less likely its workers are to have access to those plans. And so that's what we're doing here. It's a good bill. I am a small business owner. I don't pay anybody to do my stuff. I do my onboarding. The other thing I'll note in all of these questions about small businesses, when you're a small employer with 5 employees, you're not onboarding a lot of people all the time. You only have a couple people. So it really isn't that hard administratively to add one more simple thing that is a benefit to our employees. I am excited. I actually, when I was first asked to carry this bill, I did not own a small business, but now I do, and I like this bill even more, and would just point folks to the handout from the AARP about all the small business owners who do support this. It's a good bill. Appreciate answering all the questions, and looking forward to passing this bill this year. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The clerk will take the roll on House File 782. The clerk will close the roll. There being 71 ayes and 60 nays, the bill is passed as amended and its title agreed to. The next bill on the calendar for the day is House File 1234. The clerk will report the bill.
House File number 1234, number 3 on the calendar for the day, an act relating to labor, modifying peace officer and firefighter duty disability provisions, the second engrossment.
I recognize the author of the bill, the member from Ramsey, Representative Herr, to explain House File 1234.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. House File 1234 is a bill that seeks to address several major issues in the pension and public safety realm. One, it addresses the treatment gap for officers and firefighters suffering from PTSD. Two, it stabilizes the para-police and fire plan, which has been appended by the unexpected rise in PTSD-related duty disability claims. Three, it addresses the fact that these issues are top priorities for our counties, cities, our pension plans, and our chiefs and sheriffs. This bill is not perfect, and I wish it were, but this bill makes an unprecedented effort to modernize and improve our core pension features, and more importantly, make sure our critical pension systems continue to be sustainable to our current actives and for generations to come. This bill also represents groundbreaking and historic attempt to reverse the increase in PTSD duty disability trends we've seen by putting the focus on treatment, recovery, and return. We will be a leader nationwide for this type of approach, and I am thankful for the law enforcement groups and public employers who worked so tirelessly over the years to identify this innovative solution. This bill is the result of the tireless work of 15 stakeholders for a period of over 2 years. It includes groups from officers, firefighters, retirees, sheriffs, chiefs, towns, cities, counties, and the retirement plans. No one party walked away from these negotiations fully satisfied, but we as a collective have agreed that this is the best we can do that will work for our active, retirees, and disabled officers. I look forward to the discussion today. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
There is an amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
Her moves to amend House Bill number 1234, the second engrossment. The amendment is coded A5.
I recognize the author of the amendment, the member from Ramsey, Representative Hurd, to explain the A5 amendment.
Mr. Speaker, the A5 amendment is actually an amendment that incorporates one piece that we think is very critical in that in negotiations, the health insurance benefits for disabled officers cannot be negotiated away in a structured settlement. It also adds a 99% disability benefit for those who are totally and permanently disabled members in the MSRS plan. It was already part of the para plan, and we are including our troopers in that. And then it also clarifies the reimbursable expense for employers, along with a couple of technical changes for para. And then one last piece of it is a change to the offset number 2, which actually makes it more favorable to the officers who are on duty disability right now. And I ask members for a green vote.
There's an amendment to the amendment. The clerk will report the amendment to the amendment.
Her is moving to amend her amendment to House File number 1234, the second engrossment. The amendment to the amendment is coded A6.
I recognize the author of the amendment to the amendment, the member from Ramsey, Representative Hurd, to explain the A6 amendment.
Mr. Speaker, the A5 amendment is relating to the provision I talked about regarding health insurance benefits not being able to be part of the structured settlement, and that we actually lifted that language from the current workers' comp language, and there is one sentence of that that actually does not work within this particular duty disability piece of it, and so this is just technical to remove that particular sentence.
Discussion to the A6 amendment to the A5 amendment. Seeing none, all those in favor of adopting the A6 amendment, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say no. The motion prevails and the A6 amendment is adopted. There is an amendment to the amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment to the amendment.
O'Driscoll moves to amend the Her amendment as amended to House File number 1234, the second engrossment. The amendment to the amendment is coded A8.
I recognize the author of the amendment to the amendment, the member from Stearns, Representative O'Driscoll, to explain the A8 amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. The A8 amendment cleans up a longstanding question that members of the Pension Commission and others have had related to duty disability, covered duty disabilities, and cleaning up that language to tighten it up and to provide additional information. There's been some discussion that language has been addressed in the bill, and I went to nonpartisan staff and we explained to them what we were looking at, and they brought back to us the A8 amendment and said that this would be, if you will, some belt and suspenders approach to making sure that it was more clear as to what the benefits would be under the duty disability treatment plans and what qualifies and what does not qualify. Members, I encourage a yes vote on the A8 amendment to provide that clarity for all involved. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Discussion to the A8 amendment to the A5 amendment. I recognize the member from Ramsey, Representative Herr.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And Representative Driscoll, I always appreciate your contribution. Truthfully, I don't think that this is actually a bad amendment, but it is a little bit redundant. And I do just want to add that I've already heard from stakeholders from the group that they are concerned about this language. And as I've been very clear with this bill the entire time is that I never get to make decisions on this bill and what happens to it because the stakeholders are the ones that shape this bill. And so because of that, I'm going to ask for a no vote today because our stakeholders should have the time to review this and see the impact on them. And so for that, I'd ask for a no vote. Thank you.
Further discussion to the amendment. I recognize the author, the member from Stearns, Representative O'Driscoll. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of adopting the A8 amendment, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say no. No. The motion does not prevail and the amendment is not adopted. Members, we are now on discussion of the A5 amendment as amended. Is there any further discussion? I recognize the member from Isanti, Representative Dowd.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would Representative Herr yield for a question?
She will yield, Representative Dowd.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative Herr, and this isn't something that you just did now for the first time, but happens regularly in this chamber, that we just refer to people as stakeholders. Can you tell us who you're talking about, who said that they were opposed to that, which groups? I think we need to start a new practice here in this chamber of transparency and just literally say what groups are interested or don't like these things instead of just saying the word stakeholders. I don't think that gives us the whole story. If she'd be willing to yield, thank you.
I recognize the member from Ramsey, Representative Herr.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Representative Doubt, that allows me to also give you the names of the stakeholders who actually participated in this work. It's the Association of Minnesota Counties, the Coalition of Greater Minnesota Cities, Law Enforcement Labor Services, the League of Minnesota Cities, Minnesota Chiefs of Police Association, Minnesota Inter-County Association, Minnesota Police and Peace Officers Association, Minnesota Professional Firefighters Association, Minnesota Sheriff's Association, Minnesota State Fire Chiefs Association, Minnesota State Fire Department Association, Minnesota State Patrol, Minnesota State Retirement System, and Public Employees Retirement Association, and Teamsters. And to be honest, I've always been really clear about that there are individuals on both sides of what they feel like needs to happen with this bill, whether it's employer and cities, and that, to be honest, I've never called out an individual or a group because the truth is that sometimes people who are taking a position actually goes against the position of their people who perceive them to be, and so I think that these individuals have actually been very clear about where they stand, and so I would just suggest that you have individual conversations with them because there are a lot of stakeholders at the table, and I did hear from multiple groups of it, and I don't think I should be the one outing those stakeholders. So thank you, Representative Dowd.
Representative Dowd.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Representative Herr. And I wasn't trying to call you out or put you on the spot. I just, it just was an observation. I was sitting on the other side of the chamber talking to some members when that word was used, and it just kind of struck a chord with me that we very often use that term here on the House floor of stakeholders are either for this or against this, or I talk to stakeholders. And this is a public body, and I think we should talk about such and such a group supports this or such and such a group is against it. But if there were some private conversations, I totally understand that they may not want that to happen. But in those cases, maybe for our own edification here, those comments maybe shouldn't be talked about at all then on the House floor. But anyways, I didn't in any way, shape, or form mean to put you on the spot. It just struck a chord when you said that. And I think we all in this chamber should pay a little more attention when we use words like that and just try to, because people at home don't understand what that means. And frankly, not all the people here in the chamber might know which groups we're talking about because we don't all work on these issues. So I appreciate your going through the list. That was helpful. Thank you.
Any further discussion to the A5 amendment? Representative Grossell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And would Representative Herr yield to a question, please?
She will yield to a question. Representative Grossell.
Chair Herr, and thank you for bringing this forward, by the way, as well. You mentioned that the stakeholders hadn't seen the language of the amendment. Does that mean that you're willing to further have this discussion to try to tighten this up a little bit more to make it better?
The member from Ramsey, Representative Herr.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Representative Grosso, for that question. Actually, there is a long list of parking lot items that all of the stakeholders have said to me that they are committed to coming back and entertaining should this bill not work the way that they had hoped that it would. And I actually meant to say this during Representative O'Driscoll's amendment, but that I've already made the commitment to put that onto that parking lot list so that we can include that onto the items that we will continue to discuss and the stakeholders will review as we continue this work. So I hope that answers your question.
Representative Grosso.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Chair Herr. Let's keep this headed in the right direction. And again, thank you.
Any further discussion to the A5 amendment? I recognize the author of the amendment, Representative Herr.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I do just ask for support of the A5 amendment. It does put the bill in the form that the stakeholders have asked for, and I do just want to share that we did print out, I think there's like 10 letters from the stakeholders supporting this bill, and that includes our police and our fire and our chiefs and our troopers. We have letters in there from MPPOA, from League of Minnesota Cities, from all of those individuals supporting this bill. So I ask for our members' support of this amendment.
All those in favor of adopting the A5 amendment as amended, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say no. The motion prevails and the A5 amendment as amended is adopted. There's an amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
Novotny moves to amend House Bill number 1234, the second of Grossman as amended. The amendment is coded 10A.
I recognize the author of the amendment, the member from Sherburne, Representative Novotny, to explain the A5 amendment.
Thank you, Speaker Wolgamott. My amendment would simply make the changes in the cap that are proposed in this bill start with people who are in the plan at the end of July. And I say that because of this. A letter from just one of many letters and emails that I'm sure many of you have gotten like this. And it's a long letter, and I don't think I can read it. To be honest with you, I wouldn't be able to get through it and be understandable. But I'm going to try to do the best I can to pick out some highlights from Nancy, who is the wife of duty disability retired Minneapolis firefighter. And she asked this: who responded when the 35W bridge collapsed? Who responded to the call of a father who had been stabbed in the chest by his 14-year-old daughter and died? Who bravely fought fires for 9 hours straight while being attacked with bricks and rebar and rocks and glass bottles being thrown at them during the 2020 riots? And dropping down, she says, I fear every time he goes ice fishing that he won't return, and not because he fell through the ice. Because we made a painful decision to reapply for benefits. He volunteered to complete 2 rounds, 80 days total of treatment. And she goes on to discuss everything that he's done and everything that he's tried. He's literally gone through 2 years of treatment. And she gets told that a pension is not guaranteed. My husband signed a contract, a promise of a pension should he ever become disabled as a firefighter. Imagine being shown a piece of paper and getting an explanation of your pension as your family goes over the numbers for months to ensure that you can afford to file for disability. And you won't have to suffer the risk of suicide any longer. Then 7 months into the contract you signed when you left, that contract is being threatened. You lose the pension you were promised when you made a commitment. You took an oath to protect a city for 17 years. And because of these new offsets, you can't keep the business you started or the second job that you always had to help your family finances. Imagine, as best you can, how devastating that would be. And that's why I have this amendment. Members, we made a commitment to these people. that we would stand up for them. And whatever the numbers were on that piece of paper, and the numbers will vary for many things, how much they made, how long they were employed. I've got a constituent in my city who was just on the job a year when she got COVID after a direct contact with a COVID patient, and now she can't walk up a set of stairs. She's got a very low earning, and these caps are substantial. And I know that the PERA plan is in trouble, and I know that we have to make adjustments, and I know that other plans like the troopers have a different level. But the fact is, we met with PERA on Thursday. Under the last offsets that Representative Herr presented, they estimated that there's about 80 people going to be affected. 80 people. 80 people that have made decisions on, will they go to work? Will they go back to school? What job will they do? Where will they live? Do they buy a nicer used car, or do they try to fix their older used car? All these decisions have been made when they had that piece of paper slid across the table to them, and they had to make the hard decision. Do I continue to work in the job that I've done and I loved and I served the citizens, and now I can't because of what I've seen or what I've smelt or what they have heard? We can make adjustments going forward. But please do not back down and change the decisions that these people have made in the darkest days that they have had, and now we're going to go back on those decisions. Members, if you accept my amendment, we simply grandfather in the people that are in duty disability right now, and the new changes go forward. And the people that apply after this will make decisions based on the numbers. Do they take the duty disability? Do they hope the treatment works? And there are many things in the total bill that are good, but on this amendment, please help me keep the word that the state gave to these people and honor what we told them when our representative slid the piece of paper across the table to them. Thank you.
There's an amendment to the amendment. The clerk will report the amendment to the amendment.
Novotny moves to amend his amendment to House File Number 1234, the second, and Grossman as amended. The amendment to the amendment is coded A7.
I recognize the author of the amendment to the amendment, the member from Sherburne, Representative Novotny, to explain the A7 amendment.
Thank you, Speaker Wolgamott. The 10A amendment is simply a technical amendment that was added on so that we could have funding to allow, and so the amendment in front of me wouldn't be out of order.
Is there any discussion to the A7 amendment? I recognize the member from Ramsey, Representative Herr.
Thank you, Speaker. I just want to advise the body to vote no on the A7 amendment. This is reallocates $2.5 million. It is actually takes away from the actual cost of the entire plan that would affect other members of these particular pension plans. And I just want to note that this $2.5 million is a snapshot of one point in time, that there's actually 1,000 other officers who could still, right now, who are on duty disability, who actually could qualify for this benefit. And this is not a 2.5 one time, this is a 2.5. And with that adjustment of additional individuals who could still be grandfathered into this because of the decision that they could still yet make, and then that's multiplied by 30 years. And so this $2.7 million is actually not sufficient for that. And if we want a longer-term solution, it's something that we should definitely put in front of our stakeholder group and make a decision on. And I am committed to continuing, like I said, to put items on the parking lot list. So members, please vote no on this amendment.
The author of the amendment, Representative Novotny.
Thank you, Speaker Wolgamott. And I'd just like to make it clear, this amendment is for the $2.5 million. PERA estimated in the paperwork in the meeting that we had on Thursday that the current impact would be approximately $1.6 and this would be able to be rolled forward. Please vote yes.
All those in favor of adopting the A7 amendment, please say aye. Those opposed, please say no. The motion does not prevail and the A7 amendment is not adopted. Members, we are now on discussion of the underlying 10A amendment brought forward by Representative Novotny. Is there any discussion to the underlying amendment? I recognize the member from Ramsey, Representative Herr.
Mr. Speaker, I would ask the members for a no vote on this, and I really appreciate Representative Novotny. He has fought vigorously for this segment of the individuals who are impacted by this. I want to just let the body know that this is actually the fourth iteration that each time that I have actually worked with the stakeholders, this benefit has actually gotten better over the time. And so I appreciate that it is because of his pushing and also Representative O'Neill who asked the questions that asked us to relook at it, that it is better. Just for people to understand that a duty disability officer can still make 125% more than they made when they were active duty officers. You don't lose your pension plan and you can keep working. That even with the offset, somebody who makes over $100,000 will still get to keep some of the earnings from the reemployment. And so I would just ask that at this current time for a no vote on this. And I want to just reiterate that we all appreciate what our officers do. We appreciate the harm that they put themselves in to protect us, and that I also and this group made a commitment to the active officers in that we would take care of this, so that our active officers do not have to increase their plan contribution and our employer contribution to 4%, which is a significant amount to anyone who understands that they already pay 11.8% into this plan. And so not only do we have a commitment to these individuals who are on duty disability, but we have a commitment to the active officers as well. And so in doing so, I want to protect those individuals so that they also have a plan when they're ready to retire, or that when they also need to apply for a duty disability. So please vote no on this.
I recognize the author of the amendment, Representative Novotny.
Thank you, Speaker Wolgamott. And once again, I'd just like to react to what she was said. She brings up the number, the 4% adjustment for the active members. That would be the active member contribution total between the jurisdictions that they work for and the members. That'd be, the member contribution would be 1.6%. And if we change these offsets for these 80 people, as I said, it'd be $1.6 million, which is approximately 5% of the money that we need to make up. By passing this bill, the active duty members will not increase their contribution by 1.6%. It would be roughly 0.5%, a very, very small percentage of what the overall contribution and changes need to be. Vote green.
All those in favor of adopting the 10A amendment, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say no. No. The motion does not prevail and the amendment is not adopted. There are no further amendments at the desk. The clerk will give the bill its third reading as amended.
Third reading, House File 1234, as amended.
Third reading as amended. I recognize the member from Hennepin, the Majority Leader, Representative Long.
Mr. Speaker, I move a recess to the call of the Speaker so that we can have our joint convention for regents, and then we will return to the bill following the joint convention.
Representative Long moves a recess to the call of the Speaker. Is there any further discussions or announcements? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say no. No. The motion prevails and the House stands in recess.